Alright, it is a chilly morning, and I am out here in the garden because these are some rutabagas that we need to actually harvest because they are ready to go. And we've had about 3 straight days of frost, which means that we've got enough frost that these should hopefully be good tasting and sweet and all that good stuff. And these are the first time I've ever grown these particular vegetables, but they're actually very intriguing to me. A lot of people find them kind of boring, but I actually think that they're unique in the sense that these could actually be a solid staple crop if you live in an area that doesn't necessarily grow potatoes all that well. I'm not saying that you should immediately substitute every single potato dish for rutabagas, but it might be something that's worth considering in the very least. Now, these are a cool weather vegetable, but I planted these late August, and in my area in late August, it still gets in the high 90s and possibly even the hundreds occasionally. However, I just kept these very well watered, and they take about 90 days. These have been in the ground for about 90, let's see, about 95 days at this point, so definitely time to pull them up. But from what I understand, the size is the best indicator, and so we're about 4 inches, 5 inches around for pretty much all of them. It's kind of a little forest of rutabaga leaves in here. You can eat the greens. They're better cooked. They do not taste very good raw, so they're a little bit on the tart side in that sense. But as I was saying, these took about 95 days. I planted these in late summer, and now it's time to harvest them. As far as the care and feeding goes, even with planting in late summer, I did just have to keep the water up. They are pretty hardy. I mean, there were a few days that were in the 90s that they didn't really wilt all that much, and they just, kept on trucking. I didn't use a shade cloth or anything, but I did trim back the foliage a little bit. So on some of these, you can see some of those scar lines right there below where the leaves actually connect. So at that area there, that's an indicator that the leaves had been cut, and it just kept growing around it, which is actually kind of nice. And I just realized that is a monster right there. So I'm curious to see how big he is once we get him out of the ground. And as far as fertilization goes, I did nothing except a really good thick layer of compost before I planted, and that was it. Didn't add anything else throughout the season, didn't do any other amendments or whatsoever. Maybe a little tiny bit of bone meal with that compost, but outside of that, nothing. Just regular water, regular care, and keep cutting the leaves back. And the reason I was cutting the leaves back was because they're bunched together kind of close, and I wanted to keep them from shading each other out. And I feel like that actually made a difference in how big they are, which isn't a bad thing. So I might try that next season to try some that are trimmed and some that are not trimmed. But anyway, let's get to the main event, and let's get these bad boys out of the ground. And one other note, I totally ignored the spacing on a lot of these, and they grew regardless. I didn't let them get like that close together, but they were maybe 2 inches apart, 2 to 3, and they seem to grow just fine. So you don't have to worry too much about spacing. The spacing I was reading was saying that you have to do about 6 inches apart, which is about that, and I ignored that. They grew regardless. And we might leave that guy, see if he can get any bigger. Still got a couple more months of winter left. This is the one I was excited about. That's a tank. Good gravy, this dude's heavy. I would like to weigh this one, but this one by itself easily weighs about a pound, or a little more than that. So far, all these are coming up decently shaped. A little freaky with the roots there, but pretty normal for root stuff, I've learned. Alright, we got another big chungus right here, so. Whew, Nelly. That's a big old boy. Alright, well now that that's done, my wife and kids do not particularly like the greens from these. I haven't really figured out a way to cook it that they like it yet, so we're not going to force them to partake in something they despise, so we're just going to chop these off and put them in the compost today, and that's what we're going to be left with, which is okay, you know. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and in this case I just haven't figured out a way to make it palatable to them yet, but we'll figure it out eventually. About as big as sailboats too, just interesting. Alright, well they're not as ugly as I thought they would be, but I'd say that's a decent haul. First time growing them, and we got about, I don't know, a day or two's worth, but you know, you gotta start somewhere and you gotta figure it out somehow, so basically it seems like the only thing I could have done different was let them go longer and get bigger, but honestly these are within the size that I was reading about, so it's about 3 to 4 inches around, and now I know I need to just plant a whole lot more of them, and hopefully the wife and kids like them, but they probably will. They like turnips in general, so oop, someone's getting pulled over there. Alright, well I still have a couple left in the garden here. I'm going to let these go a little bit longer. I might even try to let one go to seed, although I'm not quite sure how long that takes with these. That's a subject of research that I will have to intensively find out. But anyway, with a first harvest like that, I'm not disappointed. I think that for the amount of work that went into these, which was very, very minimal, the only thing I did actively was trim the leaves back and water, and I mean that's sizable for pretty lazy gardening, honestly. So not disappointed. We're gonna have to test them out with the kids too, but I don't think that'll be too difficult. Anyway, highly recommended. They seem to be easy to grow, and as far as the variety is, these are the American Purple Top. I might try some other ones, but with this kind of success, I'm tempted just to repeat it next season, so we will see. And it is still pretty early in winter here, so I might plant some more, and we'll see what happens, but it's getting pretty chilly these days. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you guys have an awesome day, and thanks for tuning in to the new leaf of my adventures here. So anyway, hope you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy the time with the family. Arigatou gozaimasu. Sayonara.